Hi, Kidaki here. Today I'm going to be talking about something that just came across my mind as I was thinking about what to make for my next video. Since the draft is still a hot topic, I was thinking about making another draft video. And then I thought, could Detroit take Yaroslav Askarov at 4th? Because I was thinking about who should Detroit select. And then I also realized people were actually talking about this a couple months ago. Lego Rocks 99, who happens to be one of my favorite YouTubers, talked about this, I think it was 2 months ago. And obviously that was hypothetical because at the time, we all thought Detroit was going to get a top 2, top 3 pick. And now they got the worst possible outcome they could ask for. So I'm going to go over the possibility of Yaroslav Askarov being selected 4th overall. And when you think about it, it isn't a bad idea. I think it's actually quite likely. Before we get into today's video, I need to mention that I'm going to be going on a small vacation for a couple days. I still will try to upload and work on videos, but don't be surprised if I miss an upload or if an upload is late. And I will try my best to get my uploads up every other day, like usual. Now, let's talk about why I think the Wings might select Yaroslav Askarov. For those of you who just forgot, even though I literally just said it, the Wings dropped from 1st to 4th in the draft lottery. This was the worst outcome they could have asked for, as it was the lowest pick they could have received. And now, their options are narrowed down. And although the 4th overall is still a very good pick, they don't have access to the talents that they thought they were going to get. They need a franchise potential player to build around. And most of the other talents left are elite, except for one player. That player is Yaroslav Askarov. Yaroslav Askarov is seen as the best goaltending prospect since Carey Price. Usually, I wouldn't personally say that a goalie deserves to be a top 5 pick because that's just the way I am. And I think it's a little absurd to take someone in the top 5. Top 10, it's like, okay, but even then, it's very rare. And the last time it happened was actually Carey Price. That was also the last time it was a top 5 pick, of course. But Askarov, on top of being a franchise talent, is actually someone who fits Detroit's needs and could help them out a lot. So selecting him at 4th isn't as absurd as it usually would be because it somewhat makes sense. And I'm going to elaborate on this in a sec. Detroit does not have good goaltending, to say the least. And in the future, they're going to need to improve it if they want to get better and get out of this rebuild. You could argue that Detroit has the cap space to pursue someone like Braden Holtby or Robin Lehner this offseason. But that's not really a good long-term decision. A player like Holtby or Lehner will get wasted away on Detroit, as these two guys are currently in their primes. And chances are that their primes will be close to and maybe even over by the time that Detroit is out of this rebuild. Because I can't really see Detroit becoming a playoff team in under 4 years. So spending money on a quality goaltender isn't really worth it in the long run. Even if they get a budget goaltender who's quality, they're still going to get wasted away and they won't solve their problems. Most of the free agency goaltenders this year are around 30 and they're already in the middle of their prime. So a lot of them will get wasted away on Detroit. Yes, Askarov will arrive in 2 years because of his KHL contract and they'll probably need to get a fill-in guy until then. But I still don't think it's worth Detroit's money to pursue a full-on starter until then. They should go for someone like Cam Talbot or Mike Smith, who is a decent starter. They can hold the door, but they can't really, full-on Robin Lehner Vezina contending season. I think they should go for someone who's on the lower end but can still hold the door shut, like Mike Smith or Cam Talbot. And assuming Smith doesn't retire. If he does, then yeah. Even if Detroit doesn't sign a quality goaltender like Robin Lehner, that still leaves the question of why they need Askarov and why they would select him over someone like Jamie Drysdale or Marco Rossi or Lucas Raymond. Well, they need Askarov because, like I mentioned, their goaltending is very weak. Yes, Detroit has Philip Larson, but he's not 100% going to be a starter, and he's not going to be nearly as good as Askarov could be. After all, Askarov is literally, like I said, the best goaltending prospect in over a decade. And he might be the first goalie since Carey Price selected in the top 10. So, would you rather wait multiple years for Larson and hope that he develops into a decent starter, or wait until Askarov's contract is up in 2 years and get a star immediately? I think it's pretty obvious which choice you should make. Now this leads us to our second question. Why should they select Askarov over the other talents that are left? After all, the 4th overall pick isn't that bad. In fact, it's actually very good. Well, firstly, Askarov isn't necessarily out of his range in terms of rankings. I would pick him in the top 5 if he fit with a team's needs. And he does for Detroit. Detroit needs goaltending upgrades. And they have elite potential players for defense and offense. Also, in my mock draft video, I may have had Askarov at 8th, but that was also because of Lottery Simulator. And in my rankings video, I had Askarov at 8th as well, but I could have said that I would put Askarov anywhere in between 4 and 10. And I think I did say something about Askarov could go up or down. Anyways, secondly, Askarov is probably the highest potential player that will realistically be available, assuming that Stützle, Lafreniere, and Byfield are all selected in the top 3, like expected. If Stützle or Byfield falls out of the top 3, then Detroit will for sure go for them, because they are franchise players, and you can build more around a franchise player than a goaltender, but you still can build a lot around from a franchise goaltender regardless. So, assuming those 3 are selected in the top 3, Askarov is Detroit's best choice in terms of potential and in terms of someone you can build our team around. Because you can build around elite players, but it's better to build around franchise players as they're just on a whole new level. By selecting Askarov, you aren't nearly taking as much of a risk as you are taking on Philip Larson, who may or may not become an average starter. Askarov isn't a guaranteed star. No one is guaranteed, but he has a much higher chance of becoming a solid starter compared to Philip Larson. And becoming a starter is basically Askarov's floor. Obviously, it's hard to predict someone's worst because you never really know. But realistically speaking, as long as he's healthy and he doesn't pull a Rick DiPietro, his floor is a starter. So already, Askarov is the safer choice for your goaltending future, as his floor is Larson's ceiling. So they are basically setting themselves up for around 10 seasons of Yaroslav Askarov, even if he doesn't reach his full potential. And if he does reach his full potential, they'll be set up for maybe even 20 years. The point is, by selecting Askarov, their goaltending troubles will go away for a very long time. And they do need a backup, of course, and that's where I think Larson can go. So not only will they be getting a potential superstar by selecting Askarov, they will be fortifying their goaltending core. Their goaltending core will be rock solid in the future if Larson pans out and Askarov pans out. And not having to worry about your goaltending can really help you out, especially for the Wings, as they have at least one elite player or elite potential player in each position except for goaltending right now. For forwards, they have Dylan Larkin and Philip Zadina. And for defenders, they have Moritz Seider. So, if they have a good goaltending prospect, their rebuild is basically set. All they need to do is add people on the side who can build off and reinforce their team's core. And Askarov is more than a good goaltending prospect. He will be the highest potential player in the Wings and the highest potential goaltending prospect in the league, above Carter Hart, above Igor Shesterkin, and above Spencer Knight. So, as long as Stützle and Byfield aren't available, it 100% makes sense to pick Askarov at 4. Obviously, they could select Drysdale and stuff, but I think they should select Yaroslav Askarov 4th overall. Overall, selecting Askarov just makes a lot of sense to me, and the Wings already have set themselves up for a good future for their forwards and defenders. Once they draft Askarov, the hardest thing they'll have to do is add a couple players to the top 2 lines, and their top 2 lines will be pretty solid because some of their top line guys will get pushed down because their elite players will blossom, and then some of the guys on the second line will get, it's just a chain reaction, they go to depth, and all you need to do is add a couple players to the top 2 lines and a couple depth players, and literally just wait for your elite players to blossom. And you might have to worry a little bit about cap, but considering Detroit's current cap situation, that won't be too much of a problem. So I think drafting Askarov sets them up for a very smooth rebuild. You could argue that drafting an elite talent like Drysdale or Rossi also could help out their rebuild a lot. But star potential goalies are hard to come across, and especially franchise potential goalies. They are really hard to come across, and literally the last time we saw one was arguably 10 years ago. And elite forwards and defensemen show up every year, so they can wait, and next year they'll still have a high pick. And also, how many teams that aren't playoff teams have an elite or better player from each position? Not too many, and most of the teams that do are very close to becoming a playoff team. So you can sort of see that teams that have an elite player or better from each position are basically all playoff teams. And that doesn't guarantee anything, and especially considering that their so-called elite players haven't even reached their potential yet, and considering that they haven't added that much talent around yet, it doesn't give them like any guarantee, but this does give them some hope. And if they select Askarov, it will add, obviously, the third elite player. So I think that the Wings, despite having an absolutely horrendous season, can still bounce back in the next few years. And if they draft Askarov, their rebuild will be jump-started. It won't be like multiple years. Actually, it could even be multiple years. It's just that it will help out a lot. If you're still watching, you're awesome because you're watching to the end of my video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, feel free to subscribe to stay tuned for more content coming out basically every other day. Thank you for watching till the end. Until next time, bye.